fully understand. Um, and so we begin Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're going to, this chapter and section of the Bhagavatam is also known as a Uddhava Gita. Just like we have a Bhagavad Gita, this is the song of Uddhava. And Uddhava understands that Krishna is going to be leaving Earth soon. And he's saying, take me with you. You've all had this feeling. Somebody, your beloved, is leaving. It is leaving, going away, and what do you want to do? You want to join them. You want to be with them. 1 second, please. Okay, we're good now. And we all know that feeling that when somebody is dear is leaving and we just don't want to leave them. When I go to Govardhan Hill for my every other year retreat to recharge my spiritual batteries, when I get there, I walk out to Govardhan Hill. I'm a geologist. What do I see? I see a metamorphic quartzite rock. And when I leave at the end of the week, I am in a mystical place. It changes my heart. It changes me. And when I get there, I think, why did I endure this miserable flight, the horrible pollution of Delhi, the worst in the world, I might add, and the various indignities of travel to come all the way here from the comforts of my home. I actually think like that. I really do. And then when I'm leaving, I say, how could I possibly leave this place? So that I'm just trying to set up the mood of what Uddhava's feeling. Krishna's leaving. I don't want to be separate from Krishna. There was a song I used to listen to as, must have been a teenager then, that kind of emphasized this mood. Sorry, girl is acting a little weird. Let me try to unweird it for a second. All just queued up and then it weirds out on me, but we will fix this momentarily. I see what happened. Okay, I got it fixed now. So this may seem somewhat mundane, but it actually, the reason I sometimes show somewhat mundane things is in this world, we're going to hear these things all the time. And these same mundane things can help us remember Krishna and think of Krishna. And Prabhupada would also give references that way. Sometimes he would quote Shakespeare, he would quote a poet from England, he would quote these things. So we will give you that just one moment. Because this song represents the feeling of Uddhava. So I want to give you not just talk, I want to give you the emotion of what's going on. So we will get that. And now I have it properly cued. My apologies. And here it goes.
All my bags are packed, to go. I'm standing here outside your door. I hate to wake you up to say goodbye, but the dawn is breaking, it's early morn. Taxi's waiting, he's blowing his horn. Already I'm so lonesome I could cry. So kiss me and
So you get the point. Um, uh, what I'm trying to make the point is this is the mood of Uddhava. Krishna's leaving on his jet plane, going back to Vaikuntha, and he's feeling that great lamentation. So what does Krishna do when he feels that great lamentation? Well, Krishna instructs him, and he instructs him in a very special way. And this is the way of many instructions are given in the Bhagavatam. He instructs him by telling stories, and he tells the story of an avaduta. Now, what is an avaduta? Well, if you've been in ISKCON more than a year or two, you've met a few avadutas. They just don't seem to know much about rules and regulations and kind of wander around. But this was an extremely spiritual avaduta in that he learned from everybody he saw, taught him a lesson. When this, I actually produced this volume of the Bhagavatam for the BBT when Rita Nanraj was translating it. And we took this very section of the Bhagavatam and produced a separate small book, which became very popular. I hope one day it gets reprinted. It was called Enlightenment by the Natural Path. In other words, whatever this avaduta saw, be it a prostitute, a pigeon, a python, a mountain, the moon, whatever he saw, it gave him inspiration to be realized. It's how we can get whatever we do all day, everything can connect us to deeper realization. It's a very, very profound story. And frankly, one of the most moving stories. Remember, this is the 11th canto. It occurs after the 10th canto, after all the great emotion of Radha and Krishna's pastimes. It occurs after that. Yet, to some ways, it's even deeper emotions involved, because it's the emotion. The 10th canto brings us to the emotion of separation. But here it gets even, in my opinion, even deeper, because Uddhava, who's almost as good as Krishna, when he went back to Vrindavan to give message to the gopis, gopis thought it was Krishna. He actually looks like Krishna, acts like Krishna, speaks like Krishna. And so here, one of the most intimate associates of Krishna, also an intimate associate of Kamsa, it turns out, but that's another story. An intimate associate of Krishna is lamenting because he knows Krishna's about to leave. There's another story where Arjuna also is lamenting like that, but that's for another time. So this is the context we're dealing with. Now we're going to go to verse 46 today, chapter 7 of the 11th canto. Kavachchana, Kavachit, Pasta, Upasaya, Shreya, Ichantam, Bhunte Sarvatra, Datranam, Dayam Prag, Uttara Subham. A saintly person, just like fire, sometimes appears in a concealed form and other times reveals himself, or herself, we can say, for the welfare of the conditioned souls who desire real happiness. A saintly person may accept the worshipful position of spiritual master, and thus, like fire, he burns to ashes all the past and future sinful reactions of his worshipfuls by mercifully accepting their offerings. So, context. Here, it's in this enlightenment by the natural path, it's describing that the real key is take shelter of a saintly person. So a saintly person prefers to conceal his exalted spiritual position, but to instruct the suffering people of the world, he sometimes reveals his own greatness. One time, Prabhupada was asked, "Do you have any mystic ability?" And Prabhupada said, this is a group of disciples, "Oh, I have the rarest mystical siddhi, the rarest mystical siddhi of any yogis. No yogis were so rare for a yogi to have this mystical power." The disciples are thinking, could he float? Could he lift a mountain with his pinky? Of course, Krishna did that. Could he get so smaller than the smallest, bigger than the biggest? What mystic power does he have? Prabhupada said, it's so rare, you hardly ever find a yogi who has this power. So Prabhupada, finally they said, what is it, Prabhupada? What is it? He said, I could be alone in a room with beautiful naked women and have zero disturbance. That is a yoga power that hardly any yogi has. One time I was with Prabhupada in Denver, and this older Indian yogi dressed in saffron came with his very young Western blonde disciple. She was wearing the sari, and it was just the two of them came alone to see Prabhupada. It was pretty clear what was going on. You did not need a scorecard to know the players. So Prabhupada, in his brilliance, he never directly said anything to this yogi. They discussed some philosophical point. I don't remember the details now. And then Prabhupada gave a lecture on fallen yogis. He said, yes, what happens in Kali Yuga when the yogis become fallen? Basically captured by, in this case, sexual attractions. And he gave a lecture on it. And he never pointed a finger at the yogi. He just talked about it. And when he was done, the yogi well understood the point, touched Prabhupada's feet, and left with his blonde. So, it's rare to find a yogi who could do like Prabhupada did. So, sometimes they prefer to conceal his exalted position, but sometimes Prabhupada would reveal to us some of his greatness. In humility, yogis generally don't do that. For example, if you go to Kumbh Mela, you'll find these yogis come out of the Himalayas, especially the Mahakumbh Mela, in which occurs less frequently. There's different cycles, some 11 years, some every 50 years, whatever cycles. And these yogis have calendars. It's not the same calendar you have on your iPhone. Their calendars are, they look at the stars and they know everything. They're actually quite good at this. And they know when it's the right time to come, what year to come. Some come every year, some come every 11 years, some come every 50 years. Some of these yogis are so ancient. This is discussed in Radha Swami's book, Journey Home. You can't even imagine how old they are. And sometimes they come, sometimes they don't wear much in the way of clothing because they're yogis living in caves in the Himalayas. So these yogis come to take a sacred bath. They're coming to purify themselves. They're not so much coming to help the conditioned souls. That is not, they're more like Bhajanandis. That is not their particular mood for the most part. But they're great yogis, great mystic abilities, and they basically, as this verse said, they keep it concealed, but they come down, because you have no idea how old they are, but they'll come down from the mountains. Prabhupada's approach, of course, was to mix with all of us, especially us from the West who were born in families that knew nothing of the regulative principles, and to mix with us for our benefit. So, to continue the purport, but to instruct the suffering people of the world, he sometimes reveals his own greatness. This is compared to a fire that sometimes burns unnoticed beneath ashes and sometimes blazes openly. And this happens when there's a forest fire. They keep reblazing because the undergrowth catches fire and the firemen put it out and then the fire comes back. Just as a fire devours the ghee and other offerings given by the performers of sacrifice, simply a saintly person accepts the praise offered by his conditioned followers, knowing that in fact all praise is meant for the Supreme Lord Krishna. Although an ordinary person immediately becomes puffed up and foolish when he is praised, such inauspicious tendencies within a saintly person are burned to ashes by his attachment to the absolute truth. In this way, he is just like a fire. One time I went for a long walk. I've shared this story, but I'll share it again. For 5 hours with Radhanath Swami. We were at a retreat that Yogeshwar was putting on Long Island, and he had spoken in the morning, and in the afternoon, he said, let's play hooky. He didn't have to convince me. So we went off. It was at a beautiful park, nice time of year, decent weather, and we went for a long walk through this beautiful, beautiful park with gardens and paths. It was kind of a heavenly place. And what did Radhanath Swami want to share with me? He wanted to share how difficult it is to be a guru. He said how happy he was when he lived, for example, on a hill at New Vrindavan in the morning. It's cold there, especially in the winter, and it's cold there every time except for the summer because it has some elevation. How he'd have to break an ice in a bucket, pour it over himself, and then do his deity worship. He was so happy. No one praising him. Now he's a guru, thousands of followers. Wherever he goes, people praise and say all these things. And he wanted to just, even though I see him as a mentor, we're also friends. He just wanted to reveal his mind, how much he had to pray every morning that all the worship he receives, all the praise, never goes to his head. And he always sees himself as he wanted to burn to ashes any sense of ego or self. I was so impacted by that talk. And I know he just wanted to, in this case, tell a friend how tough it is to be in this position where people just praise you up and down and say all these wonderful things about you. How many of you can I start praising you up and down? I mean, for years, I would avoid my birthday part, but I'd always go out of town my birthday because I didn't want people, I was always afraid that it would just go to my head. Oh, Brahma, you're so blah, 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 blah. And I know myself, I know I'm not so blah, 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 blah. But people, eventually I realized I got to get over it. I have a position, it's a duty. So I just took it as a duty. Okay, you go to a birthday, people go blah, 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 blah. And I just, they can say whatever they want. All I hear in my brain is blah, 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 blah. I'll get you in a little bit, Bhima. So but nice to see you as always. Oh, and I see my old friend Hugo is here. I am very glad to see that. Welcome, Hugo. I haven't seen you in a while. I'm so glad to see you. Um, so, although an ordinary person immediately becomes puffed up and foolish when he is praised, such inauspicious tendencies within a saintly person are burned to ashes. In this way, he is just like a fire. The previous verse, I want to read something in that I thought is very important. Saintly persons become powerful by execution of austerities. Their consciousness is unshakable because they do not try to enjoy anything within this world. Such naturally liberated sages accept foodstuffs that are offered to them by destiny. And if by chance, listen carefully, please, they happen to eat contaminated food, they are not affected, just like a fire which burns up contaminated substance. They're that are offered to it. What does this mean? If a saintly person eats contaminated substances, one time Prabhupada was at a life member's home in Africa, Indian family, and he's sitting next to Brahmananda. Brahmananda told me this story. And the host said, "Would you like seconds?" And Prabhupada said, "Yes." And Brahmananda whispers to Prabhupada, "They're exploding in it." And Prabhupada whispers back, "Yes, I know, but I'm not going to insult my host." This is the practical reality. It's not advocating we eat contaminated food, but sometimes that may accidentally happen. And when it does, if we are very pure, it's not going to destroy our consciousness. This is a very important point because we, during our day, we live in a very contaminated age. Things are not going to be perfect. When we're traveling, we may have to eat things from the supermarket or even a restaurant sometimes. Prabhupada, when he was in Hong Kong, had to stop at an Indian restaurant because there was nothing else to eat. Sometimes these things happen. That's not the ideal circumstances, but it happens. Sometimes it's has onion or garlic or other things we don't like, or even worse. And if we're always trying to keep our consciousness very pure, it's not that we have to go enter the travel agency. There's a travel agency. I was brought up Jewish. Jews always use this travel agency. Catholics always use this travel agency. And I find devotees often use this travel agency. And it's not a good travel agency to use. Does anybody know what travel agency I'm talking about? Called Guilt Trip. To be shameless and not feel bad about things we do wrong, and that's terrible. At the same time, to have waves of guilt because we're not perfect in our devotional service is a detriment to our spiritual life. And Krishna actually has a discussion with Arjuna about this. Arjuna says, "What if I don't succeed? Meaning something went wrong. Am I like the riven cloud? Do I just drift away and nothing seems to work?" And Krishna says, "No, just stick to it by determination. You'll be successful." So herein, we take these verses, it's very encouraging to us. Uddhava is feeling a certain lament. He feels he's going to be separated from Krishna. What to do? What to do? And here, Krishna is giving the instruction. Just execute your austerities. Don't worry if there's some mistakes or difficulties. Don't worry if things don't go perfect. At one time, I counted in the Veda base how many times Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness is a gradual process. I stopped counting at 150 times. If Prabhupada says something 150 times, please take it seriously. It's important. It's not minor. It's a major consequence. So it's a gradual process. On the Royal Road, there are still potholes. So we may have some difficulty. What do we do when there's some difficulty? Our mind bothers us. Other people bother us. Nature bothers us. When these things happen, what do? We just keep going. Like a child learning to walk. When they fall over, what do you tell them to do? Stand up. Like I remember when I was teaching my kids to ride a bicycle. Sometimes they'd fall. And I just encourage them, just try it again. After a little bit, for the rest of their lives, they can ride a bicycle. Similarly, whatever difficulty you may feel in devotional service, you just keep going on, and you will find that just as a fire burns away even contaminated things, that fire will burn away the contamination. It's just a matter of sticking to it. And this is a point that's made quite a bit in this chapter, being liberal with saintly persons, not fault finding with saintly persons, not criticizing, but taking the shelter of saintly persons. Krishna is giving Uddhava this instruction. Then he's going to go into in great detail even how a prostitute became Krishna conscious by just realizing their own nature. I'm not going to go into the story of Pingala. That would be for a future class. But it's one of the most moving stories in the Bhagavatam. So to summarize, in the 10th canto, we had a very deep emotional connection with separation. But in the 11th canto, this feeling of separation even gets deeper as Uddhava realizes Krishna's leaving the planet. So this feeling we have of separation is our deep connection to Krishna. Any of us who don't feel separation have to work harder on our devotional service. By feeling separated from Krishna, Krishna, I really want you. One of my favorite songs of all
Hi, Bhagavatam, your video's frozen. Can you hear us? We can't hear you at all anymore. Nandi Bihari?
We can hear Brahmatirtha Prabhu. Henry Prabhu. Brahmatirtha Prabhu is your friend. Please reach out to him. Oh, there he is.
just flip back. Here I am.
You left off at your favorite song is?
Our favorite song of separation, here it goes.
Yeah. Right on.
My sweet Lord, my Lord, my Lord, I really
Here, George Harrison is expressing that extreme feeling of separation from Krishna. So the 11th canto is just continuing this theme of the 10th canto. We are separate from Krishna. How can we connect with Krishna? And the next part of it is going to teach you how this avadhuta, wherever he went, he had learned to see things in relation to Krishna and became completely satisfied. So we'll stop here. I really want to introduce this Uddhava Gita to give it a context. And we'll go to Bhima, who's had his hand raised for a long time. Bhima, my friend. Bhima.
Bhima Kaviraj.
Okay, there you go.
There he is. Hey,
Okay.
Bhima.
Yes, Prabhu, Haribol. I love when you bring on songs that we can instantly relate to. I was just going to say, um, some of us we don't get praised. We get instructions. Like we're always given, like you shouldn't have taken that corner, or I remember back in the day. I think you can remember it, Prabhu. You're in the Grand Illusion. Remember that one, the Grand Illusion,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Yeah, when because back in the day, especially when you were young and on the farm, there was so much hullabaloo going on, and you were always being challenged. It wasn't like a safe situation in regards to get up in the, though we did 3:30 a.m. in the morning, but out on the road and all the things that went on back then, falling off or falling by the wayside or feeling left out in the wind and stuff like that happens. And it happens, I guess, to a lot of devotees. So let's just say the fact that devotees live in New York City, you're living in the heart of the power of Maya, which actually can sometimes work for the benefit because it's so obvious. It's just so obvious. But I find what Brahmatirtha, you say that we reject any praise, but some of us who never get any, right? Who never we grab on to those little things that when somebody says something positive, Prabhu, you did a good job, or Prabhu, that's great. Remember when that was great, or something, and you grab onto that not so much to get puffed up because you're well aware of how infinitesimal anything that you do is in this world that is of no consequence, but it acts as a guiding light. Hey, I did something right. I'm getting positive feedback. I'm going to do that right thing more because I feel really good about the positive feedback I'm getting instead of getting a lecture or
Bhima,
yeah.
let me answer you. One thing is, I didn't say we should reject the praise. I don't mean that. So we have to be cautious of it. Um, Good leadership means everyone gets encouraged. Prabhupada would sometimes chastise, often praise, often encourage. Prabhupada personally encouraged me, and sometimes with just a look when I was proud. All he had to do, he didn't, Prabhupada was very careful not to violate the verse of the Gita that says, one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. So Prabhupada, that there's a very famous story where one Prabhupada's Sanskrit secretary had become very envious of Prabhupada himself. He was reading books that were critical of Bhaktisiddhanta, silly books, I might add. I mean, the arguments were silly that, his guru didn't say the exact right mantra, therefore his initiation was bogus, silly, smartest stuff. And Prabhupada said, don't read the books that are critical of my guru. So he read the books and he became very envious and he started going around criticizing the Sampradaya. He was Prabhupada's Sanskrit scholar. Remember, the average age of devotees was the mid-20s or younger then. People would take him seriously. So Prabhupada sent out the rare letter all over the movement. This so-and-so has become an envious snake. Do not listen to him. Such a rare thing. What most devotees don't know is a little while later, Prabhupada sent a messenger to him And the message was, all is forgiven, come back and be my secretary. So Prabhupada would only do this when it was necessary to protect the movement or to help reform a devotee. But when Prabhupada would get angry, it was just for the briefest moment, just for our benefit. The rest of the time, Prabhupada was very, very encouraging. I could tell many stories. It was encouraging to me. So the best leaders in the movement will be encouraging, and sometimes have to chastise. If the leaders are just into chastising all the time, that means the leaders themselves have a particular problem. And could sure use some psychological counseling, because that is not the proper way to lead. The Bhaktivedanta Institute, somehow or other, by Krishna's very intense sense of humor, I'm the director. I mean, that is an intense sense of humor. Krishna put me in that position, but I'm here, and I have great people working with me. So I have to, every day I try to tell each one I work with how much I appreciate what they're doing, because it really, I do. At the same time, I've had a few people join up with us who just had a ruin the whole atmosphere. It's like putting salt in the sweet rice instead of sugar. And everybody who interacted with them had a sour day. It was miserable. So what did I do? I didn't publicly chastise them. I said, I'd like to go to Krishna lunch with you. I would treat them to a nice Krishna lunch on the campus. And I'd talk to them and say, by the way, you have a different approach than the rest of us do. I think you should do your own project. You shouldn't be at the BI. And they would be removed. They would go on. They would leave, not leave angry, just leave. I saw a sign at a shop, don't go away mad, just go away. So I would encourage them to go on, do their own thing, because it's not working well. But I wouldn't embarrass them publicly, because the only benefit I would get to embarrass them publicly is my own false ego would get a good charge. Hey, look how big I am. So I think ISKCON now, for the most part, has much better leadership than when we were all, just a bunch of kids like those who read Lord of the Flies, that describes what ISKCON was like when Prabhupada left. If you don't know that book, you could look it up. But that's what ISKCON was like when Prabhupada left.
That's a great analogy. My God, I've never heard just like Lord of the Flies when the kids take over. Yeah.
Well, that's what they were. A bunch of kids. Some of us had to be gurus. Some of us had to be this. Somebody had to be a sannyas, and naturally we're going to stumble around. I was at the American Academy of Religion convention, and it was, there's always a scandal du jour in ISKCON. So that year there was a scandal du jour. I can't even remember what it was. This was 20 years ago, but whatever, some scandal. And I was talking to some very prominent scholar who I knew. I said, boy, what an embarrassment. ISKCON, we're going through this particular scandal, blah, blah. He says, you don't get it. I said, what do you mean I don't get it? He says, you do not get it. All the movements that began in the 60s, and there were many, they're all gone or insignificant. You're the survivor. You're the one that's still going on, even growing, have a firm basis. Of course, you're going to have these difficulties. A bunch of kids had to take over a movement, but you're the success story. What an encouraging thing this non-devotee scholar said to me. I still, there's words echo in my ears. I did ISKCON Resolve for 2 decades. That's the portable toilet of ISKCON. All the conflicts. I still do a little bit of that, but mostly moved on to the Bhaktivedanta Institute, where and all the big scandals and problems and trying to resolve it all. And those words of that professor is what sustained me through that difficult service. Now we go to my old friend, Dr. Hugo. You've been very patient with your hand raised.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Good to see you.
Yes.
More broadly, good to see everyone, but good to see you, Brahmatirtha Prabhu. Um, what
Good to
comes
be
to
seen.
mind? What comes to mind? You spoke a little bit about the Avatutta Pramana. I love the name of that book. What was it? Enlightenment through the Natural Path.
I want to get that book reprinted.
I
It's just basically part of the 11th canto, reprinted.
I hope to find a copy of it in some dusty temple brahmachari ashram library one day. But anyways, I love that you even exemplified Avatutta Brahmana by bringing us like pop music from the 60s and 70s and giving us Krishna conscious lessons from it. And something that comes to mind is that from the 70s through the 80s, probably through the 90s as well, to some extent, there was a general mood from my understanding of devotees of like, do not interact in the slightest with anything that is not completely Krishna conscious. Do not watch movies. Do not listen to music. Do not go to anywhere that is not a temple or a place of service, etc. And if anyone did engage in kind of these, let's say, mundane materialistic activities, there was a lot of backlash. And to some extent, that's still there within our global Krishna conscious community, although I think there's a much healthier mood than previously. But I wonder, I love taking inspiration from the things of this world and just linking them to Krishna. And to me, that feels right because it's like everything in this world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Every sentiment that's expressed by humans and art and music and poetry and etc., there's something Krishna conscious behind it. And so I wonder, what are your thoughts of like, to what extent is that true? And at what point is it taken too far? Or is it distracting? Or is it an excuse to just kind of let the mind go all over the place and call it Krishna conscious and Yukta Vairagya? Thank you,
I
Prabhu.
think about it a lot. It's a very good question. It depends on where we are in devotional service. For example, take the military. When you join the military, which you were in, you know that everyone gets the same haircut, everyone has the same discipline, basic training. I did some military training. I'm familiar. It is you almost lose your individuality, and that's necessary to break the bond of because you have to be part of a team. You can't be an individual. You can't let your individual quirks rule the roost. I mean, you were working a submarine, and if everyone wants to do their own thing, that submarine is going to be in trouble. So in the beginning of devotional service, we become somewhat protected. We even change our name, we get a different haircut. We do these things to break the bonds of our bodily concept. But once those bonds have been not entirely broken, but weakened, then we do what Krishna told Arjuna. Why did Krishna spend chapter after chapter of the Gita going over the subject matter of psychology, modes of nature, how this works? Because the idea was, okay, now that I know I'm not this body, at least theoretically, now I want to use this body in service. So then I need to understand what my nature of the body is. Am I have a more Kshatriya type? Or should I be a teacher? What should I do with this body? Well, I need to understand it and then engage it in service. Then our individuality comes back to us, but in a more pure form because this relates to service. So in the beginning of devotional service, these instructions, never see a movie, be careful you associate with, they're critical because we're trying to break this image we have. As we mature in devotional service, it's different. I'll give an example. We should never, there's sayings, don't associate with mundane people. But what do? Every Saturday, I have breakfast with the mayor of Gainesville. He's a big person in goodness and many ways, a vegetarian guy. But putting that aside, I associate with him. And because after 50 years, I had the maturity to associate with him in the right way. If I had done this 50 years ago, I would have ended up in mundane political thought and it would have hurt me. So it's an evolving process. So I hope that answers your question. And it's very similar to what Bijou was asking. All these questions are going around the same topic. But now we have to greet our lordships. So I'm very glad of that. Thank you all. It's a big honor to be here. I'm sorry if I'm a little spaced out. I had a project I had to finish last night for the BI, and I was up way too late to be up at 5 this morning getting ready for class. So apologize, I'm a little spacey today, but I did finish my project for the BI. So thank you very much. I wish you all a very happy, blessed day. And I see other friends. Oh, I see Dana here. We haven't talked in a while. We should catch up. And I see so many nice devotees that it's by your association, I mean it from my heart, that actually I survive in devotional service. So, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. You're amazing.
Thank you, Brahmatirtha Prabhu.
Aravindasalaya Taksham.
I just unmuted by
Okay,
accident.
they're back.
Okay.
What is that noise? Karen, thank you. It was Karen, everybody. Hare Krishna, welcome to the Afterglow. Would anyone like to speak? Bhima Prabhu is answering the questions. Any questions, corrections, angles of vision, voice cracks? Amrita Kishori is blinking. That's all I get for the Afterglow. Well, let's see.
Why isn't Hugo opening up the Strait of Hormuz so I can get cheaper gas? What is he doing on this class?
Yeah, Brahmatirtha Prabhu should take him to the breakfast with a high-ranking official so that
Yeah.
Dr. Hugo can sort it out.
Yeah.
We should send Bima to do it. He's so fired up.
I'd be taking port calls. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm going to take some time off and jump off the ship. What? Yeah, I would never get anything done.
We have a, you want to talk about the class?
Yeah, I want to talk about Krishna. Yeah, go ahead, Adipusha. Get in the elevator, make sure the connection is weak, and then start glorifying Krishna.
Okay, we're praying to Srila Prabhupada what to say. Somebody was asking Prabhupada about his mystical power, and Prabhupada was saying, well, Prabhupada said one aspect of his mystical power is be able to resist temptation and go on in devotional service without engaging in, sensual activity. And that's one thing. Another time, somebody asked Srila Prabhupada about his miracles, and he said, these devotees are my miracle. It's a miracle that my spiritual master has allowed me to inspire people to take up service to Krishna. And that's a real positive miracle, not just be able to resist degraded activity, but actually to please Krishna by encouraging other people to do service. And that's one thing.
Srila Prabhupada was asked to manifest an apple, and in response to that, he pointed at his disciples and said, "These are my miracles." Adipusha Prabhu, you're Srila Prabhupada's miracle.
It's a miracle that he gets me to do anything. It's true.
Can you believe that guy was once walking with a 44, a 44 in his dhoti next to Prabhupada? He was Prabhupada's bodyguard. This guy right here.
Did you fire any shots out of that gun, Adipusha Prabhu?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that question. The conch is going off.
Did you fire
Where's
any shots out of that shotgun that you had?
he didn't have a shotgun. He had a pistol.
They gave me both a shotgun and it was a 38, not a 44.
Wow, dangerous guy. Guy is. Isn't a Brahma Tirtha? He's such a beautiful person. I never met him, but he's got funny humor and then also good serious points. He's so devotional and loves gurus. And I like what he says, everybody goes through the agency of the guilt, So,
Guilt trip. That's it's amazing when devotees come up with things like that, unique ways of phrasing something that will stick with you for the rest of your life. Because you'll find your mind will go down this path of guilt about something, bringing you down, getting in the way of your devotion, getting in the way of clear thought, and but now I will forever remember, oh, I'm on a trip right now. I'm on a guilt trip. It's time to get off the plane at 10,000 feet. That's how.
and I also like what he says that Prabhupada says 150 times Krishna consciousness path is gradual. He says it's gradual, it's like I like what he says. If Prabhupada says 150 times, we must listen. It's beautiful. It's gradual. It's not like some people hard on themselves right away, but it takes time, to over and over to reprogram your mind, to reconnect.
One other reflection about the class, Maharaj was saying, he was speaking with Radhanath Swami about, well, how do you deal with the fact that people are appreciating and glorifying and praising and giving donations? And one time Radhanath Swami explained to us that what's important is to understand that this praise is, I say, all glories to Prabhupada, that we are transparent. Just like the bank teller, you go there and you go to give him $100, he goes, oh, I cannot take that. No, we take it and we put it in the till. We take the praise and we say, all glories to Prabhupada by his grace. It's true, this is something wonderful that's being done, but it's by his grace that we're able to do it. So we're taking the praise and the appreciation, and in that way we're untouched. It's not that we reject it, or we have to hide from it. Anyway, just a comment on his comment.
Thank you, Adipusha Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All credit goes to Srila Prabhupada. Okay. Would anyone else like to speak? Sadhvi Didi, are you preparing yourself for the choir? Yeah, okay. Junior choir, Annabelle, Isaiah, Sage, Sky.
Hare Krishna, we're in the car trying to get darshan. Lost in Manhattan.
No, no
No
worries.
worries. Are they gonna,
Can
can
sing
they
though.
sing?
Yes.
They can sing, yes.
Okay. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Nice and loud.
Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare.
Beautiful, as always. Thank you very much. Sage, Sky, you're the best. Annabelle, Isaiah, you're the best. Cindy, Radha, Karen, very nice conducting. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All right. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful day.